Welcome to the Find Your Feminine Fire podcast. I'm your host, renowned sex and relationship coach Amanda Testa. And if you are looking to reclaim your sexual desire, take sex from a to-do to something you look forward to, and enjoy deeply connected relationships without adding more to your already full plate, then you are in the right place. Listen in to discover how to fan the flames of your feminine fire, fall in love with your sensual self again, and experience intimacy like never before, all in a way that feels really good to your system. Make yourself comfortable and enjoy the episode. Hello, and welcome to our podcast. Today, we are talking about grace and mercy and how they really are keys to thriving in a powerful relationship. I am so thrilled because my lovely husband, Dr. Mark Testa, is with us today. Thank you, Mark.
Thanks for having me again.
I'm curious, as we start this discussion, why do you feel like this is an important topic?
I think there's a lot of power behind the words grace and mercy. And I grew up going to Catholic school, and I heard these words all the time, and they went in one ear and out the other, and I have not thought about them in 50 years. But recently, though, they popped back up largely in a book I'm reading, and I didn't really know the definition of them. So I looked them up. Grace, the act of offering love, patience, and understanding, even when it's not necessarily earned. It's about choosing kindness over resentment. Exactly. And that was the first word I picked, but I feel that from you, right? And I do in our relationship. But to me, the shorter definition is, you know, all my bad traits
Same.
and my shadow things that I wouldn't want others to know. I'm not going to tell you, so don't worry. And you still love me. And I think that's such a powerful thing, to accept someone's grace and then give it back. It was really such a powerful word, and there's so much there. And mercy. I don't know. I don't want to skip ahead too fast, but I just like that because it brings you closer to people in such a good way.
Yeah. I think I even had a perfect opportunity to practice grace right before this podcast because we were like, let's do the podcast. Then all of a sudden, Mark's, I'm going to take this call. I was like, really? We're sitting down to do the podcast. But then I sat there. I was like, you know what? Whatever. It's probably someone he needs to talk to for a minute. It won't take that long. Let him have the call. And then he came right back. But these are examples of how we can choose to either be super pissed and resentful or take a breath and remember that you love this person and we all have our faults. And really, is it that big of a deal? This is also these two words, which can sound, like Mark was saying, religious, but there's more to it than that. Because even I'll define mercy because I think too, when we think about these words, what is the meaning behind them? Mercy is the act of forgiving when you could punish or hold on to anger. It's choosing compassion over retribution. Again, another hugely important piece.
Yeah, very much so, because you could just come down on somebody. We heard this. I went to Catholic school. Lord, have mercy on me. Whatever. I didn't know. I just couldn't wait to get to recess. And so it makes a lot of sense now. Not necessarily don't punish me, but don't be harsh on me. And I think this is a really time in our world where we could really be harsh to people. And we ran into somebody who I sort of distanced myself from for the last 4 years. And I just felt like this person actually has a lot of good attributes, and I need to have grace with him and mercy. And it was more for me really than for him, but it's not always easy to practice that, but it feels good inside, and we get to give it to people, but we also receive it from people, right? You could be merciless on me for some things. Not that there's much to be merciless on me for, but you could, right? But that's not how love grows. That's how not relationships grow. That's not how your marriage, your closeness with people grow is by being merciless and graceless with them, because we're all human beings,
right?
Trying to get along.
Yes. understanding the difference between the two, when you think about it, like grace is more proactive, right? It's like giving love unconditionally. And mercy is more reactive, like forgiving even if you're hurt. So, grace, for example, in these situations is giving your partner the benefit of the doubt. And mercy is forgiving them. For example, snapping after you after a long day. Or Mark's shown me a lot of mercy and grace this past week as I've been just digesting a lot around the current administration, and everything else has been hard. And I've used every tool in my book, and he's been very graceful and compassionate for me. And I want to talk about why this is important and what happens without it, right? Because oftentimes when we don't offer that to one another, that's when resentment builds, when you keep score.
Exactly. They're easy words to remember in the moment when you want to either keep score or lash back out. Those words are just easy to have at the top of your mind. Let me have some grace. She's going through a hard time, and I understand it. I don't need to keep score. I don't need to try to make it right. I got nothing good to say. There's no good comebacks. So let me just have grace and keep my mouth shut, which is hard for me.
And sometimes what can happen often in long-term relationships is like little minor things can escalate into huge fights. And so we have to really be careful of that, because we want to also, this isn't about being codependent or not standing up if things aren't
Right.
healthy, but it's about really realizing how to avoid letting things constantly trigger you. Because when you're in a long-term relationship, you have to have good communication, because otherwise, when you're in this constant state of stress around one another, your nervous system will stay in fight or flight, which makes connection even harder, right? Just being in the presence of your partner can just put you on high alert, so that you are either hypervigilant about everything they do, and you're like, God damn it, why the hell did you put that there? Or you never do this. And being in that like attacky space, because every little thing is going to set you off. That's one of the ways that can show up. And the other thing about these practices of grace and mercy is it creates more safety in your relationship, right? So you can have deeper vulnerability and trust.
Yeah. Which is important for being close and sharing things. Otherwise, it's just too easy to wall yourself off, not share yourself with your partner. And yeah, it allows the guard to come down, especially knowing that you're receiving it, right? If you're giving it to me, both of those, or granting those, it's either given or it's received, both of those. But when you're receiving it, you feel less defensive, you feel less vulnerable. You still are doing vulnerable things, but you just feel less like you're going to get in trouble for it, or punitive retaliation from your partner.
Yeah. I think it helps to repair ruptures faster, instead of letting them like sit and fester and get worse over time. And this is a huge thing in relationships that you have to be really careful of, is letting things in the past be in the past, because we want to be able to evolve and grow without fear of continually being punished for past mistakes, which is part of it, because it can sometimes be easy to hold on to things. And you have to do a lot of work to move through things and past hurt, so that you can not bring those up in every single fight. That actually violates trust. If you're talking about something in confidence and vulnerability, and then you later bring that up in a fight, that is going to erode trust. I'm wondering if, Mark, if you might have another example or a story about a time where I might have showed you grace, or how it might have shown up for you in a way that felt important.
Like I tell you all the time, I'm grateful for your love, right? And I know I'm not always lovable. So when I look at you and thank you for that, and share my gratitude, I know that you're giving me grace, and I can feel it. And since I've been thinking about these two words for the last month, I just feel closer and softer towards you, and less like I got to keep score in some way, and just really grateful for what I have. I think the thing that really triggered it, a lot of this for me too, was picking up a book that I had in the past, A Year to Live. And if you read that book, it's a great read. It's a short read. It's got a lot of Buddhist philosophy in it. But the point is, you never know when your year starts, right? You don't know. Maybe my year started and I don't even know it. The bottom line is, I don't want to be pissing you off, being an idiot, being an ass, being mean, being punitive. And it just, I think, makes our whole relationship and dynamic flow better and easier. And like you said, you get over things a lot faster, because they're not going to go away. And it always falls back on you. That's not a specific example other than really the last 4 weeks has really felt like a lot easier. Now, I know when I talk about this with friends and colleagues and things, I'm like, look, you don't have to give grace and mercy to people who are violating a major value of yours. You don't have to lay down to that. But 99% of the stuff that pisses us off, we could all give a little grace and mercy to.
Because I think about a lot of ways this shows up in ways you can use it. Like you might be thinking, all right, how am I going to use this in my own relationship? So maybe think about, maybe there's a time when your partner has disappointed you, like they forgot something or let you down. Maybe you're a big birthday person and they didn't get you anything for your birthday and that really hurt you. So how might you put yourself in a different perspective in viewing that? Now, if this is something all the time and they're constantly dismissing your needs, that's one thing.
Yeah.
But maybe if this is just like a one-time thing, or maybe they've been having a hard time, or maybe they're struggling with some work stress, or they have a health issue, or someone in their family is going through something, right? You have to really put things into context. Or if you have different conflict styles, like maybe one of you has a tendency to like erupt and lash out. That I can tend to do that sometimes. And then one of you has a tendency to like shut down. We also have to remember, okay, I feel like when we get into a fight, then you're always going to go downstairs into your office and never come back out. It's understanding it makes sense based on what I know about this person that this would be how they respond based on their life experience. That doesn't mean they're doing something wrong. That means we have a different way we deal with conflict. So how can we like calm ourselves down and come back to a place where we feel resourced enough to have a constructive conversation? Because I read a recent book called The Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins, which is nothing new really, but it's great in the way she words things. Like when we look at people having a hard time, just envision they're an 8-year-old, because most people don't have a lot of emotional intelligence. We didn't really learn about it growing up. This is something that most of our parents didn't have the skills to teach us. But realizing if someone's acting out, just picture them as an 8-year-old. Picture picture them in 4th grade. And how would you react to them in that scenario? Because oftentimes that is like a childhood, like there's a childhood wound getting triggered. And again, right? These are things that take practice, but it actually, the more you realize, like I have a choice, that's the let them theory is you let this person have their experience, have their response, and then let me choose how I respond to it.
And
Yeah.
if you just have really for me now, those 2 words to hang on, you don't have to search very far for
Yeah.
calming down or responding differently or restraining yourself when you know you should. You just don't have to look far. And for me, I like a quick heuristic like that. Okay, grace and mercy. And
Yeah.
let's practice that right now.
Maybe has there been a hard time? Oh, I'll just say, maybe has there been a hard time recently where it was hard to extend grace or mercy to me?
Is there?
You can be honest. And how you ever,
When?
I don't know, is there a time?
Are you thinking of one?
Maybe you have one in mind.
Yeah, the other night you were just down a rabbit hole, and it's understandable. It's totally understandable. And I just, there was nothing I could say that was going to fix it. I don't have any solutions. And so I just had to let you do your thing. And I think you calmed yourself down or went to bed or
Yeah.
something and could have escalated.
Yeah.
Oh, don't think like that. Oh, let me fix it for you. What's it called? Mansplain, not mansplain.
Quit getting on the phone. Why do you have your phone in your hand? What are you doing with that? Versus like you handled it so well. I was like, I had to take to the bed at 8 p.m.
And without me, of all things.
I was like, I can't take anymore. I have to take to the bed. And then Mark came in and it was so sweet. And he just I was like, will you come lay with me? And he did. And that's something he doesn't usually like to do in his bedtime, but it was so sweet. And then you did, and we did like a progressive muscle relaxation exercise together. It was great. So it was so great for him to just show up with that compassionate space holding versus trying to fix it. He just was there for me, and it meant so, so much.
Yeah. It felt good to me too, really, because sometimes your angst spills over, but I wasn't picking it up this time.
Mm-hmm. Another time recently for me, it showed up is Mark travels for work a good amount. And that can sometimes stir up some resentment or just feeling like whatever, the load feels uneven sometimes or whatnot. But I realized it is fun to go travel, but sometimes it's not. Like you go to these random places, you're constantly in a stinky hotel all day with a million people and having to be on. And then you're like going from event to event and there's never any downtime. And you leave at the last possible second so that he can spend as much time with us as possible, gets there, works nonstop, comes back late. That's hard on him. And I think that helps me realize too, like it's not easy for him either. It might feel like a break, but it's not the easiest thing to do.
No,
And
it's
I
not, and
appreciate
it's
you
not
doing
always
this.
fun, but I do it for us, or I do it for our family. It's not like I'm going somewhere exotic and doing a whole bunch of fun
Right.
stuff.
And anyways, even when he does and invites me, it's not that fun because he's busy working the whole time.
Right.
So we don't get to hang out at all. And the part of me that like wants all the queenly attention does not like that because work has the queenly attention and I need it. So anyways, but I say that too because you put these things into perspective. Talked about your last year is even that night last Wednesday when there was that plane crash, you were flying home that night and it
Yeah.
really hit hard. It was so
Yeah.
like, it just was a reality check. Wow, this is such a gift. And we just never know. So I want to just honor that, right? It really is important.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you honor someone with grace and mercy, God forbid something happens, you didn't leave them on a sour note.
Yeah.
Because you never know.
Yeah.
And I think reading A Year to Live makes you, I think that's a great perspective. It might sound morbid, but it's not. It's
No,
valuable.
it is. I think too, I may be more vocal about that because my dad died of early onset Alzheimer's and he was diagnosed when he was 48. And I just remember wishing we had more conversations than we did. But a lot of it was just like denial. My family never really talked about it. My parents never really talked about it to me. My dad, I think once we were all in the kitchen and I remember like my mom and my sister and I were in there. And my dad was just like, come here. And he gave us all a hug and just said, I hate this for y'all. And I think that was the one and only discussion we had around it. And I just makes me, that too, has changed my perspective on being really passionate about love and connection. I think that's one of the reasons I do the work that I do, because I realize it's such an important thing and we never know what's around the corner. So we really have to realize the gift it is to be with someone who you love and that they love you. There's a billion of people out there, right? And the fact that you found someone and you have an amazing thing, it's a
So
gift.
true. It is.
So I want to share a little bit of a framework of how to use these tools because I think it's important for you to have some tangible way to use this in your own life to bring more grace and mercy into your own relationship. The first step would be if you find yourself getting agitated, something's triggering you, you can feel the juices flowing, you can just maybe take a breath, right? Just even notice. Take a breath and notice what's happening in your body, any sensations that you're feeling, any thoughts, any emotions. Just take a moment and notice what's happening, right? Take a breath. And that can be a huge first step. And then just like noticing, am I responding from a place of love or do I have fear here? Am I responding for love or fear? And once you check in and you can feel yourself a little more regulated, and it might take a few minutes to do this, then you can tune in and just try to choose curiosity over judgment. Instead of thinking, why do they always do this? How come you can't put the dry things away before you put the wet things away? Whatever it is. Shift from that kind of blaming and why are they doing this to me versus what might be going on for them? What is going on for them? Maybe they have a really busy day and they're trying to just be helpful before they get on calls for 7 hours. Or instead of thinking they don't care about me, maybe they're stressed. Maybe there's something going on over them. Like just choose curiosity. And then you can check in. Number 3, would I want to be treated like this if I made a mistake? Right? I think that's a big thing. Would I want to be treated like this? And then am I holding on to righteousness? Do I want to be right or do I want connection? Right? Do I want to be right or do I want to be connected? And then step 4 is this kind of a mercy release. Choose to forgive. It's not like you're letting them off the hook, but you're freeing yourself from resentment. That's the beautiful thing about forgiveness is you free yourself. And it doesn't mean bypassing your feelings. This means getting to a place where then you can have a conversation to express what's true without blaming or shaming, because we really don't want to be having conversations when we're in these triggered states, because that's not in a place where we have capacity to offer grace or mercy. We might feel very reactive and vindictive in those moments. It's really taking the time to pause, recognize what's going on in your body, choosing how you're responding. Number 2, getting curious. Number 3, check in. How could I offer more grace if this was me? How would I want to be treated? And then number 4, giving that mercy release, choosing to forget.
Those steps are helpful. And for me, just talking about this with not only you, but more people, close friends that I've been friends with since first grade. We talked about some of this, just bringing it to the top of mind. And again, for me, they're just 2 simple words that encompass and embody a lot of things
Yeah.
that you just talked about.
I'm going to pause for 1 second and offer Mark some grace. I want you to sit in this chair because I know you have a hurt hamstring. So let's change this
No,
real
I'm
quick.
doing fine.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, I want
Thank
you to have the cushy seat.
you. Appreciate it.
Okay. Are you sure?
Yeah.
All right. I want to talk about one more thing because there are times when we have to really stand up for ourselves. Being graceful, being merciful does not mean being a doormat at all. It's not about tolerating bad behavior or ignoring red flags. It doesn't mean excusing disrespect or tolerating mistreatment, but it does encourage you to really set healthy boundaries. You want to state your needs clearly and you want to hold accountability with kindness. So, for example, after you've gone through those 4 steps above and you feel a little more regulated, you can really feel into what is the need beneath this? What is the need beneath my anger? So maybe it's I need to feel heard when we talk. Like if they're on their phone a lot, you can just maybe when you're calm versus freaking out about it, be calm, tune back in, and then you can state your needs clearly. I need to feel heard when we talk. And it would be really helpful for me if you could maybe leave your phone in the other room. Is that something you're open to? And have the conversation about it. And you can also be kind. And I love you. And I also need some time to have your 100% presence on me without phones or your watch beeping or whatever it might be.
Those are all.
If you give too much, then you're going to be resentful because if you give and give without getting what you need, that's when the resentment comes in. So you really have to speak your needs, not being a doormat.
I think sometimes if you feel that I am giving you grace, there's not a lot of reason for a fight back.
Yeah.
Or if I'm being merciful and not like complaining to you that you did something that I wouldn't have done that way, it prevents the retaliation that you would want to give, right? Because sometimes we want to push back on other people's points of view that escalated because we don't see them as a human with flaws,
Right.
which we all are, or we want to be right and be merciless. I'm right. I told you I'm right.
Yes.
Am I right?
Yes. And this plays really strongly into the bedroom and intimacy too.
Yeah.
Because when we want to be really have amazing sex and have that deep connection, safety is a huge part of that. And when we feel emotionally safe with our partners, our nervous system relaxes more deeply into intimacy. It is very hard to open up to higher depths of connection and intimacy and pleasure when you're holding resentment or when your heart is closed. And that's a big part of why sacred sexuality and the work that we do makes us more able to process what we're feeling and to have those open connections. Because when our energy is open to one another, there's so much goodness that can happen.
And that is what happens. It does open the flow of energy between people. And you call it energy, call it kindness, call it forgiveness, call it just all those good emotions or states that we want to be in, because you're not defending yourself or trying to prove yourself. You can just be yourself.
Yeah. And it also helps to restore trust, which is essential
Yeah.
for deep pleasure. You have to really trust that the person you're with can hold you. And that's the other beautiful thing about grace is they know everything about you and they can still hold you in that. Which when it comes to sex, you want a partner that you can be your wild primal self and they will hold you in that. Because sometimes sex doesn't always look like it doesn't look like the movies, right? It's whatever you're feeling. And to be able to fully release that, to have emotions, to make faces, to make sounds, like being truly raw and primal and into it, that's when it's so good. And that you can fall into that space more easily when your partner's holding space for you, so that they can hold grace for you and they can see you in all of your wholeness and really love it and enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah. And we all have areas that everybody knows. Some people know more intimately about us than others, that you just got to accept people as they are. Look, I've been taking care of patients for a long time. There's a lot of stuff. We're all more similar than we are separate and different.
Yeah. People, I think, are doing the best they can with the tools they have. I have one last question for you, and then I'll wrap it up. But I'm curious for you. Do you notice a shift in intimacy when I'm giving you more grace?
Oh, yeah, I do. I feel closer. And again, it goes back to the gratitude I feel of our closeness, what we're trying to build here in a relationship because you're giving me that grace, and it feels like I want to give it back. And I feel like it brings us closer, knowing that we know these things about each other, but we're choosing to be here with that person to build something. Because if you go over there, guess what? You're over there and you're going to still be the same person. It's taken me a long time to get to this point, but I'm feeling like it's helping us have even a better and smoother and closer relationship.
And I think this is what's so important about growing in long-term relationships is that you have to be constantly open to learning new things and evolving. And this is what's so beautiful about picking up something new. Like these are terms that have just come into our lives for whatever reason. And we're really noticing the potency of them in ways we never have before.
Yeah.
So I'll just invite you to maybe reflect on that for you in your relationship. Maybe where might you be able to offer more grace?
And I ask people this question all the time now. Do you know the definition of grace? And really, people don't. They might have a feeling about it, or do you know the definition of mercy? And I think those are really good starting points to talk about. And I did this with my buddy the other day. We were first known each other since first grade and had brunch and got the answers pretty correctly. And we talked about it for a couple hours, tangentially or directly. And after we left, I hugged him and I said, I thanked him for giving me his grace and mercy, and that he has mine. And it just made us tears me up because we're already close, but it really brought us even a closer. And same with you, right? Thank you for giving me. I'm giving it back. It's received and it's given. And the receiving is from somebody who hopefully you love. Obviously, they love you or have a bigger heart than maybe you do in the moment. But it's something to receive. It's just something powerful to receive.
Yeah. So that would be my homework for you this week. Talk with your partner about this, about grace and mercy. Talk to them about it. Try the 4-step formula to give it a go and always share how it goes for you. I always love to hear. So you can always feel free to DM me on Instagram at Testa and let me know how it goes for you if you try it. If you love this episode as well, please review and share with a friend. And thank you so much for listening. We will look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you for listening to the Find Your Feminine Fire podcast. If you loved this episode, please go ahead and forward it right now to someone you know would love it. And if you've not had a chance yet to leave us a rave review on Apple Podcasts, please make sure to rate and review if you enjoyed it, as well as make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Want to stay connected? Make sure to go to amandatesta.com/thegoods to download your free sensuality activation and stay connected. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.